Hi, I'm Kendall with the Rawls Group. The old African proverb, "it takes a village," illustrates the essential nature of a team approach to succession planning. Succession planning is a complex endeavor. As such, it requires leveraging the expertise of a diversity of backgrounds. Collaboration and different expert opinions provides a 360-degree approach, ensuring the possible, probable, and potential issues impacting your long-term vision are addressed. To provide insight into common questions received from business owners, we are leveraging the village of our valued strategic relationships. As you listen to this episode, you'll be able to immediately apply the key takeaways and you'll come back for more. Now we're going to focus on what is the best way to address uncomfortable subjects that are more difficult to address during crisis as opposed to normal times.
So I think difficult conversations will always be difficult. I would say that during crisis mode, the intensity and the amount of these conversations is probably much higher as opposed to normal times. So when addressing uncomfortable subjects, I like to keep in mind a few things. Being authentic, showing empathy, and staying focused. So being authentic, people like to use the terms transparent and honest. I like the term authentic because it brings perspective where perspective may be necessary. Empathy, I believe empathy needs to be real for it to be truly present in a conversation. And focus, when you allow room for necessary perspective, there's a good chance that the conversation can go off the rails a little. Uncomfortable subjects are uncomfortable because the initiator is concerned about where the conversation is going to go. But the reality is that you should have a finish line when bringing up the subject. So even after listening to the other person's perspective, make sure the conversation can head back towards the finish line. Play out an example in franchising. Let's say that you as a franchisor are made aware that several franchisees are not complying with safety measures because it's costing them too much money or business volume. So with regard to authentic, explain your truth of the matter. Remind them that you've led them in the right direction a lot more than you've led them in the wrong direction. Explain that your corporate team has done the necessary research and due diligence to make sure that the safety measures put in place are compliant with government requirements, they're operationally practical, and most importantly, protective of the brand. Explain that any additional cost for this compliance is not nearly as burdensome as the impact of the public discussing the brand's dismissal of customer safety. For empathy, I think everyone's situation is a little different right now, so you really need to listen carefully to their situation and step into their shoes for a moment. Understand that the franchisee has a manager that has asthma and can't wear a mask all day. And when understanding the circumstances, don't prepare for your argument in your head while they're talking. Really listen and acknowledge to their circumstances. Take a deep breath and then get back on track. So, that's where focus would come into play. So perspectives can be explained but not necessarily argued. So in this example, the facts are that you need to maintain brand standards. So I'd say the finish line is still where it started and you need to get there. So in this case, the franchisee has a pretty challenging issue to deal with, but you should be able to make them aware of the tools and resources available to them and help them better understand their options in order to get back on the same path as you.
Lots of things that you can do to deal with those very, very effectively. And some of the things that I've been able to experience over time, and I get a lot of my understanding about life from logic and reading bumper stickers. And once I had a bumper sticker that said Virginia is for lovers. I think that's true. We live there, and that was great. There are things that you can put on your desk, like everybody's entitled to my opinion. I also believe that to be true, and that was a gift from my son. A third is a button you can wear that just says jog. And I find a lot of my energy comes from just getting out in the morning and running. But the bumper sticker that I have that I think really applies to this question about how do you deal with uncomfortable topics during a time of crisis is this one. And it says, truth, when in doubt, tell it. Now I know that Jim Collins and some other pundits think that the truth has to be brutally honest, but my experience in life is that it doesn't really have to be. It can also be compassionate and it can be caring, and you can demonstrate that you really do have empathy with the people that you're sharing this message with. And the process that we work with in our clients and teach them to do is to use a process that we call having a beer with them, B-E-E-R. everybody's familiar with that word, but what they don't recognize is that it's really an acronym. The B means that you start talking to people about the behavior it is that you find to be uncomfortable or that you find is getting in the way. Or in other cases, the behavior that you see is just exactly what you want to have happen. And you want to talk to people about, let's keep that going. And then the other behavior is the behavior that you want to say, let's stop that. The E, the first E in the acronym BEER, is all about, here is the effect of that behavior for either better or worse, and here's how it relates to our overall mission and vision and values, or our guiding principles. The third E is, here's the expectation that we have regarding your behavior going forward. And the expectation in this case is very specific. It talks about measurable outcomes so that people know exactly what it is you want them to do. And then the R in the BEER talks about, we're going to review how things are going in the future. And here's when we're going to have our first review of that. So they know, first of all, that you're not talking just to be talking, you're talking because you expect an outcome change. And if you do that, and you do it with compassion, then you're going to have a tremendous amount of influence on the people whose behavior you would like to change, or on the difficult topic that you want to be addressed. So give it a try. Sit down and have a beer with your people.
Uncomfortable subjects are going to, elevate stress and anxiety in any times. And, during the time that we're in right now, certainly there's an elevated level, I think, for most people of stress and anxiety, regardless of what they're doing in work or for work. So I think a couple of different things are necessary. One, or would be, prudent. One is to exercise as much empathy as possible, and try to understand before you are going into the conversations you might be having around uncomfortable subjects in the business, to exercise as much empathy as possible, try to understand where your people are coming from, where they are, what feelings they're most likely experiencing at the time, and take those into consideration, and to address the uncomfortable subjects directly and with compassion. Because I think when you beat around the bush with it, whatever is unspoken festers and creates a compounding level of stress, if you will, and potentially could make the issues worse, as opposed to exercising empathy, being very direct in your communication, and communicating with compassion.
Thank you to our strategic partners, The Village, for participating and sharing your perspective. Do you have a burning question you want to discuss with an expert? Feel free to submit it via the Ask an Expert link featured on the page. Continue to listen to this series now, or come back later for more. Each question featured may want you to learn something new.